found yourself in Nuremberg in a strange way. You were a prisoner of war?
Yes.
And where did you get captured?
We got captured in Amsterdam. We were set on fire over the Zuider Zee out there. There's somebody going in a hurry.
Yeah.
We were set on fire, and when you're set on fire up there at 30,000 feet, well, there's not much you can do except jump out.
So what was your role? Were you a paratrooper, or was?
No, I was on a bomber, B-17s,
Right.
and part of a 10-man crew. Because of my size, I couldn't get into the smaller areas that I enjoyed, so I undertook to take a waist gun, 50 caliber machine gun, and I was a couple of years older than most of my guys, and they kind of looked up to me for some reason. So anyhow, I kind of had control of the whole back end of the plane. And when we got hit on that thing, why, our radio man, he got blasted across his little cubicle there without his oxygen kit. And nobody knew exactly what was going on in the back, because our officers in the front, why, had never communicated anything with us. I could see the radio man was kind of in a bad way because of lacks of oxygen, so I jumped off in my oxygen, went up into the radio room and used my mask on him until I could locate his, and there was several minutes there, probably 4 or 5 minutes, where we were swapping my mask back and forth just to keep both of us alive.
Sure.
And I finally found his, and then we both got on the oxygen situation, and till I got him straightened out and where he could stand and come back into the thing. But whenever they hit us with, I don't know what, but it did set our engine on fire and our tanks or something, and there was a small stream of fire that was coming out of the wing ports up over the bomb bay, right down the catwalk and right through the radio room. And it was amazing. It held its size in that whole thing, just like a regular squirt on that thing. And of course, that's hotter than hell. I strapped.
Okay. Okay.
So I could finally get the door closed, and then I tried to minister to Mr. Harris. He was our radio man at the time, and I finally got him around. We finally did get some communication from the front, and it was about the fire. They asked if there was anything we could do about it, and there was no answer to that situation, because it's nothing we could get at. So there was a few minutes of silence from the commander, and he finally decided we had all better do some bailing out on that thing. I managed to get everybody out of their things, the ball turret, the tail gunner, and the next waist gunner, and I'd kicked out the hatches and had everything prepared for a bailout on that thing. And I was standing at the rear hatch and motioned back. There was 3 men standing on the catwalk in the rear end with stunned looks on their faces. And this part gets to me. I never knew what happened to any of them because none of them survived. But they were all there, all with their parachutes on, all capable of jumping. They never made it. There was only 4 of us out of the whole aircraft that survived out of the 10 men. The pilot was hit. The top turret man was killed. The bombardier was killed. So that left the navigator and the co-pilot up front. And afterwards, we had a slight reunion in Cincinnati in '88 when the 4 of us, or 3 of us, got together. I asked the co-pilot what had happened on that situation. He didn't really remember an awful lot of it. But he says the pilot did have a sense of presence to reach over and put the automatic pilot on, which kept the plane flying as best he could on that thing. But he did give the order to bail out. So I was sitting there on that hatch, waiting to turn back, and I motioned to the 3 guys on the thing to come on, and the radio man pushed me out, and he followed right out after me. And it is surprising. I don't know if I waited or didn't wait, but I pulled a ripcord on that thing. And in a situation like that, you're looking for instant gratification. It didn't come. So in the meantime, you're pulling one little cord, and it feels like that thing has got to be about 6 foot long, you know, because you just can't get it out quick enough for that airplane to open up. But finally, the parachute did deploy, and oh, the pain when that happened. It catches you right in the crotch, and it makes you mighty aware of where you are. But nevertheless, it's still a shock. It's a suicidal act, really, when you first time you do that thing. I can remember smoking 2 cigarettes on the way down. I couldn't light them with
Wait a
this.
minute, you're smoking as you're coming down?
I'm smoking as I'm coming down, like a damn idiot. I don't know what to, but it took a whole book of matches, you know, to get me going on 1 cigarette. It's lucky I had a couple of matchbooks there. But when I did land, I could look down, and here was the big Zuider Zee, and there's a small spit of land between the Zuider Zee and the North Sea, and all 4 of us miraculously landed on that little spit of land on it. Of course, all of us, I could look down, and here's these small German troops, you know, there's about 6 or 7 of them on bicycles. You could see them coming around the different roads to figure out where you're going to land on it. Well, I landed right up next to that Zuider Zee dike. It looks like it must have been about 70 feet up top of that thing. There was no way to get away the other way. And I can remember that the local populace come out, and one fellow in particular, he come over and was chattering at me. I couldn't understand him or anything like that. He finally motioned for cigarettes, you know. So I gave him a cigarette and lit up one myself and gave him the rest of the pack, which was not too smart a thing to do. That left me without any cigarettes. But anyhow, he looked at the Germans and he looked at me and just shrugged his shoulders. I have the feeling they probably would have tried to do something if the Germans hadn't been so prevalent and right in that situation. But then we started on our thing. They put us in an Amsterdam jail. It was right on the waterfront in Amsterdam. And there was writings all over the wall of different political prisoners. They had written different messages. Can't remember any of them, but I just know that they were there. And after, I think it was 5 days we stayed there, we were put out with a couple of German soldiers and transported by train, rail, to Brunswick, which was a staging area for the aircraft prisoners of war. They put a dossier out on me, took pictures of me, gave me a general description and any different markings I had on my body, like I have a tattoo on my arm, which was listed on there. And from there, I don't quite recollect. It seems like we went somewhere to have something to eat. But from then on, we went by train. They took us all the way up into Lithuania to Camp 4, Stalag 4, which is the name of that situation. And I was there about 8 months, I think. Hard to recollect time after so many years on these things, but you're so far north up there that daylight comes at different different times. You, with nobody with any watches, you find it hard to tell time by the sun up there if you're just automatically brought in. So we had one newcomer come in, and of course, being in the morning, he had to get up and go to the latrine. Whether anybody told him the rules or not, we don't know. But anyhow, he headed out of the barracks and headed towards the latrine, which was probably 60 to 70 yards down the other side of the compound. And of course, the German guards in the towers saw him, and he kept motioning him to go back, but he couldn't understand German, so he just kept going, and they finally did shoot him right dead and right in the middle of the compound there. It's a fatalistic attitude. I mean, I was sleeping next to a window and peeked out, and I'm amazed to this day that seeing that dead guy out there and hearing the shot, I still went back to sleep. I don't understand myself at times. But after about 8 months on that, the Russians were advancing on it, so they took us out and put us on they took part of us out and put us on a boat in one of the ports there. It was a tramp coal steamer, but anyhow, they had a great big hole in that thing, and they just shoved us all down a ladder. The ladder must have been 60, 70 feet, and here we are just all climbing down and trying to make life easier in there. They just kept shoving them in and kept sitting on top of each other. But there was, I don't know that there was any food for about the four days that we were on that boat traveling. The boat made some doggone awful more noises, and of course every different noise that you make it out, maybe it's a bomb scraping along the thing on that, kind of makes you scary. But we did manage to make it into Bremen, and from there we were put on a train and headed to Kiefheide, which is Camp 4. Or not, was it Kiefheide? Yeah, it was Kiefheide, which is Camp 4, Gulag Luft 4. Couldn't tell you where it is, but we got there, and that's where they made a 2-mile run out of it. This commander of the camp out of there had just lost some family in Berlin because of the U.S. air raids on that thing, and he was a little teed off at us. But they had guards back in the woods on both sides with machine guns. They had dogs. They had a whole array of things to keep us in line, and then they put us on a run to get to Camp 4. All of us had a little pack, you know, we make it out of a shirt. Just tie the shirt and the tails together and kind of slip in like a backpack on that thing. We had what few possessions we had, but by the time we got that 2-mile run in such poor condition, every one of us had dropped our packs and entered that camp without anything. Mm-hmm. And we were at that camp, I'm not sure, possibly 6 months. Seems like it was spring when we got there and it was winter when we left. Got on another train that took us into Nuremberg, off on the eastern side. There was a political prisoner camp in there, but they stationed us there. And they had officers from the American Camp 1 was in there, and we happened to find my my co-pilot and my navigator were both there. I tried to get some information out of the co-pilot on that thing, but he refused to answer me. I have some private information. I won't condone, I won't put it on this thing. But let's get by that.
How long were you at Nuremberg?
At Nuremberg, probably wasn't more than 2 months.
Whereabouts was it? Could you see the rally grounds from where you were?
See the what?
The rally grounds, the stadium, the Nuremberg Stadium?
Oh, yes, yes. We were being on the hill like this. We could see the whole city laid out in front of us. I can remember especially they had some kind of fuel tanks out there, self-balancing fuel tanks. I don't know how they operated, but they're great big tanks. They must have been 50 feet across, and they just seemed to come and go for some reason. I don't know if there was a fuel load or something, put pressure to elevate it. And the Nuremberg Stadium was off to our right as we faced the city. We could see the whole great big building out there and those big long steps, you know, that they had on that thing. I never saw any activity outside of individual people walking back and forth into that. We were subject to the English nighttime raids on that city, on Nuremberg. And some of the most amazing fireworks you ever see in your life are an all-out all-out ground-to-air war on those things. The sounds of the aircraft when they get hit, you know, and they're coming down and blasting and all the bombs. It's a terrific type of thing that defies description, really.
When were you shot down? What date?
I was shot down in February 21st, 1944. That was the start of what they call Big Week, when the Allies out of England put up 2,000 aircraft a day for 7 days on that thing.
So that was the bombing of Nijmegen, Plate, and those places down the Rhine
Yes,
from.
yeah. I did make one mission. We made one mission down the Rhine. I think it was 150 some miles on that thing. We had flak every step of the way, and before we took off, they issued us a small packet of what they call chaff, which is aluminum strips. And the radio men had a little port that they feed these things out, and it deflects the radar, or whatever they call for radar in those days, so that the flak, we could see it. I mean, it's off to our left side, coming back, and it was just a steady stream, but it was all in that same area, and not too much of it got in to the actual bombing crews themselves because it was clouded, overcast.
So how many missions were you on?
I was on 10 missions.
10 missions?
Yes. The first mission was at Bremen. We hit the sub pens. I was subbing for somebody else on another crew. We come back with 149 holes that were counted in the bottom of that thing. Every tank had a hole in it. Of course, they had self-sealing tanks. But when we got back and they counted the holes on it, they scrapped the airplane. Mm-hmm. The next mission was I was subbing for somebody else on that thing. Can't remember what the target was at the moment, but it was down in that below Bremen somewhere. They had used smoke canisters on the town when they saw us coming or heard us coming. And it was a nice little square down there, smoke blowing all across that city, so you couldn't see the city, but you knew where the smoke was. We dropped all our bombs on the thing, and we headed out up towards Sweden, out over the North Sea, which was our next leg of that travel. And we just got over the North Sea when we had an aircraft propeller run away from us. We'd evidently got a hole in something and they lost all the oil in it. They tried to feather it out, but it got almost feathered to where they could shut it down, and she lost the oil and it went right back into a windmill position. Just throws all the controls out of kilter on that. You can run, have the stick right back in your lap, and all the trim tabs trimmed for maximum. We were losing altitude so fast that they got the order to jettison everything in the back, so we jettisoned everything, machine guns, all the extra clothes, whatever ammunition we had, whatever you could loose, you threw it out the window. And when we got to thinking about it, actually there was quite a few parachutes had gone out. Wasn't any of us wanted to bail out over that North Sea. On that same journey, I looked up on my left side, and there was a B-17 that was going along in a normal attitude, and all of a sudden it nosed down and went down about 5,000 feet before it got pulled out. And amazing enough, at that time I saw one parachute open up out there. And I felt so sick for that poor guy that bailed out in that thing right in the middle of winter. This was in December, I think, when we made that mission. But to bail out over that North Sea in the middle of winter, actually he should have stayed with the ship. I don't know whatever happened to it, but it just kept going down and getting out of our sight. So
Right.
It probably did land up there in the North Sea. Anyhow, after Camp 4, we had some kind of transportation or something into what they call Mooseburg. Mooseburg was a political prisoner type of deal. They had quite a few Russian prisoners in there. And they took Camp 4 and dumped us in there for a while. And on the 29th of April was when Patton come in with his tanks and poked them in the door on that thing. They asked us to work up some kind of a policing situation. So I don't know why they picked me, but they gave me 6 guys and told me where to go station them, you know, just to make sure that the prisoners weren't just running around the countryside, because they said they still had a lot of cleaning up to do of the Germans around that thing. And I can remember that was the first touch of freedom that I've had in 15 months. And starvation was a way of living. I think in the last 4 months of that thing, I lost about 45 to 50 pounds. I was down to about 160 from a little over 200. And so I went looking for food after I got all these guys stationed. I went into the little town, which is a couple kilometers south of us. Ran across some GIs that were stationed in a house and got to inquiring if I could get a 10-man ration box off them. I said, yeah, help yourself. So I grabbed one of those and headed back to camp. I had a few friends in there. We stand in there. It's surprising, after being all starved out like that, there's very little eating you could do on that situation. But Americans be what they are. In Camp Mooseburg, they did have, about a quarter mile from us, they had a huge garden in there. They raised all kinds of vegetables, evidently, for the camp. And I just decided to take a walk one day. I went down through this vegetable garden. There was a creek back in there that somebody told me about. So I was going to go down there and just meander around. Well, I got down there and there was a barn down there, and it was full of pigs that the Germans had been raising. And there was about 7 or 8 GIs down there. They had a 150-pound pig. They were banging it over the head with a shovel trying to kill it because nobody had a knife or knew how to butcher the doggone things. So they asked me if I knew how to butcher, so I said, yeah. So they had a little penknife there, about that long, with about a 2.5-inch blade on it, and I explained to them how to do it. Told them to get a man on each leg, one to hold the chin down, and then the other guy to stand there and cut the throat on the thing. And the pig was half dead by then anyhow, but they finally did. They finally got down and cut the jugular vein on that doggone thing. And golly, they thanked me profusely for that situation. So I said, when you get it butchered up, well, let me have a hunk of it. See, well, God, in 3-4 hours, they come up with a small ham on that, fresh ham. And they had rhubarb in that garden out there. We had plenty of sugar. And I don't know what there was about it, but me and some of my friends, we cooked up that ham and had that rhubarb sauce with that thing. And I tell you, that's something I remember till today as being one of my better meals.
How were you treated at the camp?
Personally, I was never abused. I was never hit, never poked or prodded or anything like that. When we did get shot down in Nuremberg, they interrogated us when we were in that seaside prison there. The soldier took us out, shackled us up to him, and we walked down to an American bank in Amsterdam. And there was a German major in there, was asking me questions on how the American were taking pictures under cloud. At the time, I had no idea what he was talking about, and I explained to him that I had no idea how we could do it. But I often wondered, because I was the only one on our squadron that had a camera, was taking pictures on that thing. And how the hell he knew I had that camera going up there? It was just one of those before, you know, I was sticking out the window and taking pictures and things like that. And anyhow, later on, of course, you come in with infrared or something like that. I think they did take some pictures with that kind of stuff over there, but at the time, I had no knowledge of it. From Nuremberg, I walked out to a small German airfield, single lane airfield, where they were bringing in the C-47s and taking the guys out, load by load on that thing. I had walked out one day with everything that I had. I started out by myself. I got into some little town. It was late in the afternoon, and there was this big building, bigger than this, but it had 3 floors or 4 floors, I don't remember which. But anyhow, I wandered looking for a place to spend the night, so I wandered over into that thing. You come find out it was an armory. I went down in the basement on that thing, and God, here was some all different kinds of bayonets laying around down in there. So I picked up 4 or 5 of them, shoved them in my pack, make nice souvenirs, you know. And I had a lead chain cleaning chain that I found. And I picked up a leather backpack that had a horsehide cover on it, horsehair. I still got all that stuff. Yeah. And yeah, it made a nice pack for me to continue on with. So I, coming down, and that night I got up on the 3rd floor on that thing, found a corner up there, pitch dark, you know, you couldn't see where you were. And so I just threw my blanket down and rolled up in a corner down there somewhere. God, the next morning at daylight when I looked out, here over about 5 feet, you know, there was nothing left of the building. I was just off in one corner. I wonder I didn't walk off and things there that night. And right up next to my head was a whole bunch of potato mashers. Those German words don't come as quick as they should. With the old potato masher, you know, that they threw at you. Mm-hmm. And there was it's about 6 of them in that box. And here I'd been sleeping by them all night long. I gingerly towed out of that place and got the hell away from it and continued on my walk. And it was about another 5 kilometers down the road to this airfield. We finally got to that. Everybody milling around, nobody with any supervision, nobody knows what you're doing. Pretty soon here comes a German plane. And everybody's kind of wondering what the hell's a German plane coming? Well, he comes in and he comes down and makes a landing on us. And here's a whole bunch of guys right at the end with anti-aircraft guns. They kind of have dozing on that. Finally, and the plane come down, and I'd be damned if he didn't take off again. See? And circle around again. And about that time, that lieutenant come out of there, and boy, he was ripping those guys up and down, you know. He said, what the hell are you guys doing? Letting that boy get away. Open up on him or something. So the next time when he come right around again and come down on it, thinking, by God, they were on him all the way down that runway on it. They didn't kill anybody, but by God, that airplane stopped. Oh, that was something. And down in the end there was a little hangar down in there, and that was where I saw my first jet aircraft down there. I went down and there was just one in there. Didn't know what to make of it or anything like that. But it was amazing to see one of them up close.
Was it a German jet?
German jet. When we were in Nuremberg, we'd had Nuremberg? I think it was Nuremberg. Yeah, Nuremberg. We had one go by. And it so amazed me, the sound that they made. It was just like somebody ripping a shirt, just tearing it right apart. It made such an odd noise going by that thing so fast. So we finally got back. Here I am flying that airplane, and I'm watching those wings to see if those damn propellers don't quit turning. This is a little bit of a scary time, you know. But we finally ended up at Camp Lucky Strike on the coast of France up there. And they feed you about 5 meals a day. Eggnogs mostly, whatever, no solid food, but just all kinds of eggnogs and high protein kind of thing to get you built back up because your stomach says it doesn't have any size. But they work that, and I'm kind of a curious guy myself, so I wander around the camp. I get back and start walking out of camp, and I come across a path, you know, and I go down this path, and soon it comes to me that here's these little tags all along the outside of this path, you know. I'm walking in a goddamn minefield and don't know any different.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I figured, well, this path is pretty well laid out. Let's hope I don't hit something. So I continued on to it, probably another 200 yards. Got right down on the ocean there. He had a bunker down there with a big old cannon in that thing. And I looked off the edge of that thing, and down below, there must have been 200 shells down in there that had been shot at that bunker. But evidently they were hitting too low and just dropping down. They weren't exploding. So they evidently were solid things that were trying to break through that thing. And it's amazing the things you do when you're, at least me, anyhow.
When did you muster out?
Huh?
When did you muster out of the service?
I mustered out in October 5th, 1945. I had just shy of 5 years in the service.
What have you been doing the rest of your life?
Surviving.